The following program is brought to you by Rogers Anyplace TV. Enjoy exclusive content for free. Visit RogersAnyplaceTV.com.
Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm Kathryn Mousseau. As you know, this is a show about how to write that book, and in this case, how to write that play. Something we haven't touched upon very often on this show, but I'm sure you're going to enjoy my next guest very much, Shirley Morrow.
Hi.
Hi, Shirley. Welcome to Let's Get Writing.
And thank you for having me.
Yeah, we go back a long way, Shirley.
We do indeed. For those who don't know, we go way back to our high school days of writing together. So both of us have had a passion for writing for a very long time.
For a very long time. And I think, you know, if you have that passion for writing, it's carried with you through life. It's not something that you lose. And I'm excited actually to delve into this today because you're actually, I'm not sure if you're finished or still in the process, but the show for Queen Street Dinner Theatre this year is going to be your work.
Exactly. I just finished the second draft of Fools Rush In, which is one of the evening shows, and it's going to be set in 1966, a great era for songs and music and costumes. And at the Cozy Chat, which is near and dear to anyone from our demographics who remembers the Chat, and older, of course, and who went there in the 40s and 50s and 60s.
And the Chat's long gone now, isn't it?
Yeah, and there's not a lot of information about it. So this story, and of course it's not a historical piece, it's just a fun piece that happens to be set at the Cozy Chat. So it's not that I have to have a lot of accuracy, but if there's anyone out there who does know exactly when it closed, I'd be interested to know that. But in the case of my particular story, I purposely set it in that era because it would be fun for the music, etc. And I also set it such that a new owner takes over and she's reopening, so it's a grand reopening. So really the accuracy of the year is not relevant to when the Chat closed. Well, but I believe it did somewhere mid-60s or late.
You know, I don't know. I actually was never there. I know the name, heard of it, but I was actually never ever there.
Well, an interesting thing, my mother actually did bake the pies and did the baking and cooking for the Cozy Chat way back before I was born.
Oh, really?
In the 40s and 50s when she was first here in Grand Falls. And Windsor it was then. And so, you know, there's a little bit of history, a little bit of a homage to my mom there as well, because she's such a good baker and cook, and she was, and the Cozy Chat. So I actually named the cook Lottie, which was my mother's nickname. So that's a bit of fun. It's just a little fun thing I did.
Well, you can do these things when you're the author.
You can. And I've heard so much about the Cozy Chat growing up. I don't remember it. I think my sister can recall it. She remembers, she's a little older than me, and she remembers going there for Sundays and things like that. She can remember little details about it, and my brothers certainly would, because they're, you know, 10 or 12 years older. So, and a lot of people that I've mentioned it to have said, the Cozy Chat, oh my gosh, I went there and stuff like that. But there's not a lot of actual heritage history about it here.
No, but it's going to be in your
a
play.
A fun venue.
A fun venue. And no doubt that's what it was back in the time.
Yes.
To a certain degree.
A place to meet and have a soda and have a piece of pie and date and romance, and there were weddings held there.
Oh, really?
And all of those little things come out in the play in various ways and you know, shapes. And actually there was a wedding of a family member of mine, and I don't know exactly the year, but there is a photograph, and my father's in the photograph. So it was Florence and Jimmy Hollett that got married there.
At the Cozy Chat.
At the Cozy Chat. And the wedding picture is in that little book about the merchants in Windsor. And so I've seen the picture of that.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So taking this on for the dinner theater, I know you've done the lunchtime play, which is about the war brides.
And that's playing again this year.
That's playing again this year. So that was the first play that you wrote for Queen Street.
Well, actually, they did my logging show for 2 summers as well. Or they did Yesterday's Men.
Yesterday's
And
Men,
that
which
one was researched and written about the logging camps in Central Region, particularly Millertown area, during the 20s and 30s and the conditions in the camps. So we ran that successfully for 2 summers, and it did very well. I had the War Brides on a back burner because it was originally researched and written in 2006 for the year of the War Bride, and was done for Northcliffe. And it was just sort of sitting there, and then we decided to take it out and dust it off and do some rewrites, and it became last year's lunch show. And of course, we do have a lot of tour groups that pass through, and they take up the seating for the lunch show. So John found that there were a lot of people locally that didn't get in to see that show because it was always sold out. So, you know, we're going to run it one more summer and see if there's anybody.
People the opportunity.
If there's anybody local wants to see it and didn't get to see it last year, or if you saw it and you love the story and want to come back, we'll be there again this summer.
And Shirley, the lunchtime show, the War Bride show, I mean, you know, you're in and out within an hour or just under an hour. So that's a different type of show than the evening show, the one that you're taking.
It is.
So this is a much larger production, a much
bigger undertaking. It's a bigger script. It's a little more flexible in that way because the War Brides, I actually had to cut it down and shave it down and try to make it as succinct as possible so you could get those people in and out in an hour and still see a show. And that was part of the reason you couldn't have a huge audience because you can't physically serve that many people and get them in and out. So with the evening show, you can fit, you know, you can fill the house as full as it will take for fire regulations, and you can go for it because you've got all evening to wine and dine these people because they're, you know, the bar is open and they're enjoying their evening and they're being served. It's broken down into first act, second act, third act. They're getting their entree and then their desserts and then your closing act, that kind of thing. So it's much more leisurely, and you can have a bit of fun.
You can have a bit of fun. So speaking about that, how did you approach doing a you know, a play for the evening dinner theater? Because we do know, what is it that's unique about dinner theater plays?
The thing about dinner theater quite often is that the play itself or the text itself is really just a backdrop for great music because it's a musical theater piece. People love to come and be wined and dined and have, you know, some great music, whatever era you happen to be doing, and we generally try to mix it up each year and pick something that's from a different time so that there's some variety that way. So really, I see the story and the backdrop as just a way to move along and be able to present some of these great tunes. And if you can find tunes that really suit the characters and move the story itself along, then that's great too. So it's a really fun thing to create because you're trying to create a piece that, and they're all fluff really. These kinds of shows, they're just fluff. It's just to get you laughing, to get the people in the seats laughing, to have a great night out, to have a great meal, to hear some tunes, and to laugh along with these characters and the mayhem that you can create. So comedy, essentially, unless you are doing a serious piece like War Brides or what have you, where you have those kind of moments. But for this one, essentially it's just a fun little campy story that moves the show along, allows me to use some great songs from the era, both male and female and group songs and that sort of thing, and just have a lot of fun with the evening. So if you're looking at the format of a dinner theater, if you're doing like, so you come in and your salad is laid out for you, et cetera, and you're chatting and getting settled, and they're checking your orders for the main entree. So your first act is really just setting up the story, the characters, what tonight is going to be all about, and some of the great tunes. So that when we go into the break, you're going to be served your entree, and then you're going to come back for the second act, and whatever's been going on in the first act gets more convoluted and complicated, and little shenanigans go on, and you have a bit of fun with it. And then you break for dessert. And then you come back and basically you tie up all the loose ends, resolve all the little comedies that are going on and the little hookups or whatever the storyline happens to be. And you do a finale of some great music and home you go. So that's pretty much the formula of this style of dinner theater. And Queen Street has been doing that beautifully for 20 years. And I've either participated in directing or working backstage or helping with these shows for the 7 seasons that I've been there, or I've been in the audience for the other 13 seasons watching exactly what they're doing.
Which is also a good place to be, because it gives you a sense of what people are enjoying and what they want. So it's nice to have that balance. And, you know, I have to ask, because, you know, the music is such a huge part. So as you're approaching the writing of the script, did the music come first, or did that inspire your script? How did it unfold?
I kind of, and you could go either way, but I did start with the music actually this time because I wanted to be able to play off it to some degree. So I started by just, you know, going through songs from that era, the top hits in the 60s, you know, 1960, 61, 62, 63, etc., and some in the late 50s, because I wanted kind of that span between 55 and 65, which was when the cozy chat, you know, had been in its heyday in the 40s and 50s, and I think towards the end of the 60s is when it may have been winding down, but that was the era that I kind of wanted to work in. So I started by just finding tunes that I knew they were big hits in that day and that I love them. I love to hear them again. And I know that other people love them. You know, people come for the music. The reason the Bee Gees sells out is because they want to hear the Bee Gees or ABBA or any of our tribute shows. That's what they want to hear, is great music from the era. So I started off by picking some songs that I thought, and then you listen to the songs and the lyrics and that, and you kind of think, oh, that'd be really funny in this part of a show, and because I had a storyline in mind.
Oh, you did? Yeah.
Yeah, I've had a kind of storyline in the back of my mind for quite a while, and hadn't offered to do that for John because he's usually had his plays come in, scripted plays, and we've just reworked and made local references and revamped.
I was going to ask you about that. Is the dinner theater a big market? Are there a lot of scripts out there floating around? Where do you go? Where do you go to get dinner theater scripts?
John could certainly answer that question easier than I could. I know that he has accessed the Grafton Street
in Halifax.
In Halifax, and Cindy Locke shows. He's done a number of those, which is similar to the type that I've just created, which is where I got that kind of understanding of how do you create a dinner theater from watching so many of the Cindy Locke shows. So that's where, you know, that's a starting point, but I just felt like I've watched so many of these, I've participated so many times, and I'd love to just start from scratch, a blank page, and create my own instead of, because we've always taken the scripts. If they are a standard dinner theater script, we've had to change all the references to local references, changing the names quite often to local names, that kind of thing, just so you get a few chuckles.
Well, this is it. You kind of do have to get that in there, and I've noticed every year that they've done that at the dinner theater. And I guess you have that artistic license with dinner theater plays?
Well, that's what they're intended for. A lot of times they'll actually come in with the little insert there saying insert local reference or insert local restaurant or whatever, because you're talking about whatever's in the line. You're talking about it, and you're going to get a much bigger laugh if you say Badger or Bishops or Botwood, or if you make a reference to the Cozy Chat and you said it there, or the Oasis last year, which was, you know, that was originally called Cindy's Roadhouse, I believe, and it was like a dinner theater that was written about a basic sort of truck stop. venue.
Okay.
So
I was going to ask you about
yeah.
that, if that was an original as well, but that was based on
That was
one of
adapted
Cindy's
from
plays?
Cindy Locke, and actually John had done quite a bit of work on it before he even passed it over to me, and I was going to direct it, and then I took it and played with it some more. And also in the rehearsal process, you tend to play with it as well, as I'm expecting to do with my own script, because you're in rehearsal and somebody will say something really funny, or something funny will happen. And we'll go, oh, you know what? Keep that in. We are doing that.
Right. Better than what you could think
Yes.
of. I mean, that's what happens with theater, with the energy of actually bringing it
Oh,
together
yeah.
and doing it. It comes
We
to life.
had actually a couple of lines in the play last year that came from the kids themselves at auditions. We were at auditions, and this young girl, Madison Rousel, who ended up in the show, playing Susie. And Susie's character wanted to go to Nashville and become a country star.
Why not?
And she stood up to audition, and she didn't know us at all, and she'd never met us. And when they were getting her tape set up so she could sing, she said, oh, I hope this works out. I don't want to make coffee forever. And it turned out she worked at Tim Hortons. So we thought that was really funny. So I put it in the show, oh, I hope this works out. I don't want to make coffee forever. And it was her own line, right?
Yeah.
So that was fun.
So, so when you go into your production, and it's not a terribly long time that you have, is it, from when you
No.
cast and it actually?
Well, if you were looking
opens?
at, you know, professional theater status, they will often just 2 or 3 weeks and they're done, but they're all day long rehearsing. In our case, we work with students and student grants and what have you, so you're waiting for them to finish school, some of them high school, some of them university. University ones are back sooner, but you're working with high school students and people like me who work full-time. And I do this as a passion on the side, so evenings and weekends. So when you add that all up, you don't have as many hours.
No, you don't.
But you get it done.
You always get it done.
We always get
That's
it done.
the thing about theater, whatever project you take on and you feel like you're never ready for the curtain to go up.
How true.
You always feel like that.
If you
to
had
some
another
degree.
week, you'd still say, I need another week.
Yeah.
But,
so
you know, that's the reality. And
that's what
there's
opening
something,
nights are for.
That's what they're for. And text and dress and all that. And I mean, you know, you're here working in production now, and you know how much you have to be on the fly to come in and do an interview. So
Oh yeah, it
it's
just
nerve-wracking and exciting.
I don't know, but maybe nerve-wracking for the producer. I'm having a pretty good time most of
Yes, me too. Maybe John has all the headaches. I'm having a ball.
Yeah, well, and that's when work is, or you know, it's play.
Yeah, it
it's
is.
play to delve into processes like this and find out about how it's going.
It's an absolute joy, and writing is an absolute joy. And going back to, you know, the purpose of this show being about writing, I think if you have it in you to write, if there's something in there, this little thing, you can't not write. It's like breathing, or doing theater, you can't not do it. It's like breathing. And I find that I'll have something in the back of my mind. It could be there for years, but I'll say, I'm going to write that down one of these days. And sure enough, the time will come. And this is one of those times. I've had that idea ever since I first started watching the Cindy Locke shows 12, 15 years ago.
And you know, and that's one point, Shirley, is sometimes you know, you wake up, you've had a dream, you go, oh, that's an idea that I could, you got to write it down.
Exactly.
You have to write it down because it's elusive.
Well, it drives your husbands crazy too, because you get up in the middle of the night and start doing this on the computer so you don't forget an idea.
Oh yeah.
And I've done that before.
Yeah.
And Dave gets a kick out of me because I'll go into the room and I'll say, I'm going to write for a while. And I'll come out a few hours later and I'm 30 pages in. And I'll say, take a look at this. And he'll go, did you just come up with 30 pages in that couple of, I was like, yeah, it's just like, it's just there.
Well, when it hits you, and if you can go with the flow at the time, if there's an inclination that something's coming, it's going to come out. If you can get it down, then it's not going to be your final, but I mean, it's going to be your ideas, it's going to be an energy.
It's just, I've always liked the free flow, write first, just keep writing. And get something on paper so that you can go back and play with it and edit and embellish and make it better. and that works for pretty much, and generally I mostly have just written plays or poetry, but I find that works for me. I just go crazy and write, and then...
Well, I think, Shirley, that may be true across any genre of writing, books, speeches. You have to have something to work with. You need to get something on paper to start with. It's easy to change it, but if you have nothing there, and it's often said, just write. Don't worry about what it is. Don't edit it at all. Unedited from the head to the page, just let it flow.
Yeah, free flow. Yeah. And that works. Stuff. It does work. And that's how I worked on like previous plays. Mutual Affair was a farce that we did twice here. First in '98 and again a few years later in the early 2000s. And it was really funny because that was a comedy and a scenario that I had stuck in my head for the longest time, and I kept saying, I'm going to write that show sometime. I had this funny little scenario. And finally one night I said, you know what, enough of this, I'm going to write this play. And I did, but I wrote it like just pumped it out in a night kind of thing, and I was just going. It was like the keys were on fire. And Dave was like, what are you doing? And that's how I've always written everything. Now you can go back, as you say, and embellish and fix it up a bit and work with it in rehearsal. But everything I've ever written has just kind of poured out of me. And I think that's, I never take that for granted because I think it's a gift. Yeah. I really do.
Yeah. Anyone can do anything, but some things may come easier to other people.
Yeah.
When it flows, and you do have to take advantage of those moments and just get there and do it. Let it go.
Because there are a lot of people that would panic at a blank page, but to me it's a challenge.
Yeah.
You see a blank page and you're like, whoa, I could fill this up.
It's a canvas. It's your canvas.
Like painting, or it's true. It's like artwork or whatever.
Yeah. And the neat thing about it, I think, in working with theater is that you get to hear it. You know, when you're writing a book, which is primarily what I'm working on, I wouldn't mind working with you on a play, by the way. We need to do a show.
We keep saying that, and we've got to do it before time runs out.
Yeah, we've got to do it. But when you're working with a book, sometimes they'll tell you, read it aloud. Like, take your pages and listen to them.
How it sounds.
So you can imagine how it sounds. You can get the tempo. You can get the feel of it and how it's moving. Yeah. So the nice thing about theater is once you get in rehearsal, you're hearing it. You know, you kind of have a pace. You know what's working. You know what needs to be cut, maybe, or moved. And sometimes it's a matter of it's here, here, and here. But if you take here and here.
It's like a better punchline.
It's rearranging it.
What I find fascinating about taking it from the page to the rehearsal is that sometimes they deliver it. Well, obviously they're not you, so they don't know what was up in your head when you wrote it. So they deliver it their own way, and it's better. And you're like, oh wait, I never even got that. That's a different delivery. It gives it a whole new meaning. It changes the context of that line entirely. And then you can look at it and go, okay, all right, how can I make that fit in? And you might add another line because that provoked you, you know? So it's really fun to see it come from the page right here to actors in front of you producing it.
So do you are there any more challenging parts of it, or do you ever feel possessive over certain lines that are not going to be there anymore, or do you go through that?
I don't think it's something, it's not my experience. There might be, if something is relevant to the storyline, such as a historical piece like War Brides or the logging show, if there's something that's really relevant and we're having a difficulty with the line, then I'll say, yes, this needs to stay in here, but do we have an idea of how it can be said better, or how it can be taken from here but still in the script somehow? Or for that example, you know, when we're trying to cut War Brides down, and what can we cut and still tell the story? So there are times like that when you might get a little possessive. But once I've got, and when you're first doing your first ideas and your first draft, I wanted to get it out there and get it on paper and get people looking at it before I took it too critically and said, oh, okay, you think I should change that? Yeah, I'll change it. But once I have it on paper and we're looking at it together and other people are giving me input, then I'm quite open to it because we want to make it even better. Right?
Of course,
So.
that's and I mean, like you mentioned, in the type of play you're writing for dinner theater, there's not like deep characterization. There's not. I mean, there's still got to be a character arc. I'm assuming there is an arc, but it's not. It's not. You know, it's not played out the same way. You don't have time. It's not what the audience is there for. This is life.
No, they're there to have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
And they want, and it's such a delicate balance in. When you go to a stage show, if you sign up to go to the Arts and Culture Center and you buy your ticket and you sit in the seat to watch a show, you know that you're coming to watch a piece of theater, that you're going to sit here until intermission, you're not going to make any noise, you're going to turn off your phone, you're going to go, you know, wait till the show is over. If you sign up for dinner theater, it's a different thing. It's much more casual. You're eating a meal, you're having drinks with friends. You might chit-chat a little tiny bit, you know, in between. So it's, you know, you're watching the show, but it's more just a little bit of entertainment until the next song comes up.
There you go.
So you don't want to get too heavy in the script or get too detailed.
That's right, you don't, because people are talking and there are distractions. Shirley, if you had one piece of writing advice, what would you share with us? It's your chance.
Oh, just like Nike says, just do it.
Just do it.
If you like to write, just write. Come up with an idea and start writing. Put it on paper. As you said, let it free flow and share the ideas. When you're ready to share it so that and never take feedback as a negative thing. Take it as a positive thing because they're helping you grow as a writer or as an artist.
Well, and I think those are, you know, great words, and we can sometimes be very sensitive. And actually, when someone starts to write, sometimes they don't even want to put their stuff out there. It's maybe personal. It's just, it's a difficult thing. But then once you get flowing and you realize that people will be supportive, generally will be supportive.
Yes.
And having a writing partner sometimes to bounce things off can be invaluable. We've done that.
Yeah, we certainly did. We started out with collective theater and writing shows. We were ahead of our time, you know, back in high school with Chess Skinner, creating our own plays and researching, writing that show about the Beothuk Indians. And we did a collage that time about teenage issues called The Collage, and we just wrote all these little scenes.
Well,
it was awesome.
Hey, Curl. Well, we got to do. I got to call you Curl.
That's it.
We got to do it again.
High school days. We will.
Thanks so much. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.